Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Try Knoxville. Mike Roberts along for the ride again, and we're going to cut right into the show. But first of all, we have to thank our sponsors, Design Metal Artists, for coming on board. And again, stay tuned. We'll show you how you can pick up a free tumbler later on in this show. I'm going to come right to you and say it's been a heck of a ride. Now, normally I have my design stuff on, of course, but I also usually my wife says you need to shave. But I knew who today's guest was. And he's the reason I didn't shave because I want to be like Doug, Pastor Doug Brady. I like this kind of stuff. You do too. You
Yeah.
wear it all the time.
Yeah, keep it short.
Yeah.
Charlene said if I shave, I'm in trouble. I've threatened several times, and of course, you can see I still have it. So I
Right.
didn't make good on my threat.
Obviously,
Yeah.
my thing is, and I don't have hair up here at all. And my wife wanted me to grow my hair out last winter while we were down south. We spent 9 weeks down in Tennessee. And I said, all right, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And I don't like hair on my ears anymore. It used to be I had long hair, it didn't matter. But anyway, so I went that route. Of course, nothing's growing here, but I had the hair going down the side. I said, but the condition is the beard comes with it. And about 6 weeks into it, she goes, I don't like that beard. And I said, and I don't like the hair. So we took care of it all in one big swoop. So it was entertaining nonetheless. But the reason we are bringing you on the show is you've been around here a long time. I think I first met you probably on a golf course, I'm guessing, because you golf great, and I go out there and watch people golf great. I don't golf that much. Obviously through the racetrack as well, with me being involved in Knoxville Raceway and you being out there as well. And really, earlier this year got to know you, and I want to kind of go back to previous Doug Brady. Before you came here, tell me your story. How did you get into ministry?
Well, thanks, first of all, for having me on.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
It's a real honor. Grew up in the Midwest. My mom lives in Hutchinson, Kansas. We settled there with my mom in the 6th grade. And so finished, elementary years and then middle school years, high school years there in Hutch. I was introduced to the gospel really through the FCA huddle groups, and Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So there was a hometown hero, Tom Holbrook, who was an all-state player there in Hutch for 3 years, went on and played at Fort Hays State, and then got drafted by then what was the Seattle Supersonics back in the day.
Okay, yeah.
And he made it all the way to the last cut and came home after not making the team. They didn't have the development league then or anything else. It was the NBA or Europe, and so he didn't want to go to Europe. He came back to Hutch and started teaching in the middle school. And through his college years, he himself came to faith in Christ. And so that became just something that he wanted to share with others was, the gospel and how a person could have assurance of their faith and of their salvation. And so he started an FCA huddle group in our middle school. And at that time, that was 1976, so I would have been 13 years old. And he invited me.
How was Doug Brady at 13 years old?
13 years old.
Yeah.
And
what was? I've never been to Hutchinson. What was lifestyle like for you in Hutchinson? What was your life?
Yeah, a single parent mom,
Okay.
my brother and I and my mom, and just the greatest mom ever. And so from that, we had a Catholic background growing up, and there were many things that I learned within the framework of going to church, but I don't know that I had this awareness that, I needed to make a decision for Christ. I knew Christ made a decision for me on the cross, but I didn't know how to respond to that. I didn't know that I needed to respond to that. And that's not an indictment or a knock against any denomination or any church. It was just my experience. And so what happened is when Tom started the FCA Huddle Group, he invited as many students as wanted to come. And it was great. We got to, gather. We played, usually played bombardment or dodgeball, wiffle ball, some kind of activity. And then from there was a short devotion, and he would close in prayer. And it was great. A lot of my classmates went. As a matter of fact, over 100 of us showed up
Wow.
on these Tuesday nights. But prior to that, I mean, life was pretty typical. I mean, I enjoyed baseball. I like sports. Baseball was something I was probably better at than any other sport.
Okay.
And, got in fights with my brother all the time.
That's what I was going to
Sibling-
ask you. How was your
sib-
relationship with your brother?
Yeah, sibling rivalries.
Right.
He's the older brother. And, of course, I always thought he was a pinhead. And so we always, would go at it. And but one of those relationships now that is just as solid as a rock, and I just love my brother dearly. But when you're growing up and he's your older brother and bossing you around, you don't really take kindly to that. But my mom was just one of the most selfless people I know. Just sacrificed for my brother and I. Always went the extra mile. And but yeah, group of friends. We played Stratomatic back in the day. That was a great way to, sort of play board games
Sure.
with sports and just typical stuff. Stay up late, watch the Atlanta Braves on TBS, and summers were always great. Get your chores done, go to the pool. Just a real wholesome Midwest life, and just. Hutchinson is located just north and west of Wichita, about 45 miles. The state fair is there. It was a very supportive community of the schools and of athletics and arts. And so my experience growing up in that community from the 6th grade on was just really, really positive.
I ran into a person over in West Liberty at a gun show I was at. And younger guy, I'm going to say mid-20s. And I couldn't help but think of my mom because he was blue jeans, T-shirt with a hole in it, and he had a hat on that said "Mama Tried," the old Merle Haggard song, And I kind of was down that route with my mother. Was you easy to raise?
Yeah, I was more the compliant one.
Okay. What about your brother?
Yeah, Steve was a little bit more on the edge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's interesting. You can learn a lot by observation. And so I sort of observed some of the things my brother was doing, and I thought, well, that didn't really turn out too well. And so as a result of that, I was a quick learn that way. Being ornery, I mean, that's part of my temperament or personality. I enjoy the camaraderie and competition and just that environment. And so it's a give and take with me.
Mm-hmm.
If, someone wants to, have quarter for quarter, that's okay. I try to keep it always clean. But my brother, I would be like, Steve, I just think that's a good idea. Oh, Mom will never find out. And of course, in a small town, moms always find out. There's a network of moms. In case someone's watching this and you're young, just be aware that there's a network of moms out there, and they talk to one another. And somehow, before you hit the door of your house, your mom's going to know, and they're going to find out.
It took me a while to figure out that network, and and dads are the same way too. Although we pretend we don't pay attention, we do. But I had to do that with my own daughter as a single parent during her teenage years. So that was a challenge in itself. When you mentioned raised as a Catholic. And how I'm going to assume the teenage years is when things started tilting for you and up through high school, when you realized that this is something else I want to pursue.
Yeah, I think the foundation that I had was just fantastic. And what transpired from that is when I started going to the FCA huddle groups, I realized that the gospel was a personal gospel. It wasn't that just God loved the world as a whole, even though he does. It was God loved me. And the evidence of that, or the proof of that, was the cross. That was God's demonstration of his love for me. And I had never heard it put that way. And I would take my Bible to the FCA meetings, follow along with the devotion, and then in September of 1976, after the third or fourth time of gathering on those Tuesday nights, I remember afterwards going to Coach Holbrook and asking him, what do I do with this? I mean, in what way did Jesus' sacrifice and suffering and resurrection, what does that mean to me personally? And he said, he took me to John's Gospel, chapter 3, a conversation that Jesus had with Nicodemus, who was a religious leader at the time. And it's a great conversation because Nicodemus has been listening to Jesus, obviously is aware of not only what he taught, but the lives that he was transforming and the miracles that were taking place. And he went and he made a statement to Jesus one night, and he said, I know that you've got to be sent from God. No one can do the things you do unless God be with him. And it was like his aha moment, like, here I am, I've studied, I prepared, I'm a religious leader, I'm well respected, but you're doing things and you're fulfilling things that only the Messiah can do. And Jesus didn't, it's interesting because Jesus, in his response at that moment, said, Nicodemus, you must be born again. And he wasn't talking about, a rebirth physically, but
Right.
he was talking about a birth spiritually. And then he went on to explain what that means. And then this is where the famous verse, John 3:16, fits into that conversation. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever would believe on him would have eternal life. It's not God's will that I would perish, but I had to put faith to my belief. I believed. I had faith, but I needed to do something with it. I needed to apply it. And in the application of it, that's where transformation takes place. That's where the new birth happens.
When you mention the cross, that's exactly what you're talking about. It's not
Yeah.
just the cross physically looking at it. It's what took place on the cross. We're with Pastor Doug Brady right now, and we've got some stuff to share with you here about Knoxville is coming up that you're a part of, and the rest of the ministries are a part
Yeah.
of as well. But I want to get people to get to know you a little bit better. Again, I've had I don't even know the year that we met, but I've known you a long time, just in
Yeah.
passing and everything else. Known you enough to trust you with a lot of things, and that takes a lot coming from me. Just from, I don't know for the traveling background or what it was, but somewhere along the line I put up a lot of walls back in my day.
Yeah.
You mentioned rebirth and computer technology reboot
Yeah.
would be a good one.
Yeah.
Never too late to start over.
That's right. Yeah.
That's where I always say I land on my feet. All right, and that's the second chance or the third chance or the 10th
Yeah.
chance sometimes. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things we go down there. Fast forward a little bit, you decided to take it to the next level. Is that a good way of saying that?
Sure,
Besides, being on this side of gospel, you wanted to get the word out. How did you go about doing that? Where did you go to school for this?
Yeah, I went to school in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. Went to
Familiar with it. Yeah.
Rhema Bible Training Center, and prior to that, really,
Andy Hillenberg, sprint card racer. That's why I know
yeah,
that.
that's right. Yeah. The Chili Bowl and all the
Yeah,
fun stuff.
down Tulsa, yeah,
absolutely. So, well, when I was 15, I was in a church service, and there was an awareness that I had that somehow, in some way, I saw myself doing gospel work. Now, I didn't know what that looked like. I'm 15 years old. I collect baseball cards. I play sports. I wear 501 Levi's and T-shirts and ball caps, and that's my world. And I go to school and try to obey my mom. So when I graduated from high school, I had a baseball scholarship. So I went to school to play baseball. The blessing was I get an education through the process. When I'm done with that, I start my own business. I have a small paint contracting business, do drywall and painting. And during those years in my early 20s, I was working one day and I just had an awareness, like it's time to get ready for ministry. And so I sold my business, and I had a year's worth of contracts that I sewed into another painter's business, a dear friend of mine. And so I said, hey, Jerry, I've got a year's worth of work. I'm glad to just give this to you. And I'll go around and introduce you to all the people that I've contracted work with. And then set my sails and went down to Oklahoma and got ready for ministry. And it was like that window of my life or that season, sort of faded, came to an end, and it's like a new dawn arose for it's time to get ready for ministry. And that was sort of the all of a sudden it was like, okay, the 15-year-old in me remembered, yeah, this is something that I've known of for quite some time, but now's the time to prepare for it. And so from that, was down there a couple years and worked at the ministry for a season. Through that, I met Charlene, my wife. She came from Southern California to train for ministry. And so from there, we went to Denver to help plant a church for 3.5 years, and we were in Southwest Kansas for 7 years. And then there was another big transition. We were doing supportive ministry, working with youth and children, and now I sense like it's time to do senior pastor work. And that was daunting to me. And there was a church here in Knoxville that was in transition, and they got in touch with me, and we came and interviewed, and it was a good fit, and the congregation welcomed Shar and I and Luke into their family, and we've been here 23 years. That's just absolutely amazing to us.
In this day and age with turnover, 23 years is a long commitment.
I know.
And I'm not saying in ministry, I'm talking about in anything in life. It seems like 5 years done, 5 years done, 5 years done. And I've seen some, organizations like that too, churches like that, like 3-5 years down the road we go.
Yeah.
Why Knoxville? I always say try Knoxville. That's the name of my show. I know why I live here. I know why I'm passionate about here. What made you passionate about this?
When we came, it was just evident to us, to Charlene and I, that this was like the right place, and it's a knowing. That's the best way I know to describe it. The opposite would be like, oh, it's not the right place. And when I use that phrase, I usually use an illustration like, it's not right because it's like taking a shower with your socks on. It just doesn't feel right.
Right.
But when we came here, there was just obviously, Mike, the best way to describe it, there was just a peace that we had. And there's no perfect place.
Right.
No place is perfect. But this was the place for us. And we were welcome. We were received. And, we were given an opportunity. And I don't know what else a person could really ask for. And they didn't know us, and whenever you welcome someone new to your team, whether it's in the marketplace or in a school setting or in ministry, no matter what it is, there is a risk involved.
Sure.
It's easier to hire from within. Someone's background, and anyone can look good on a resume or sound good in an interview. So in good faith, they welcomed us, and we just, every year, they just kept welcoming us. And we never had, and still don't have, a desire to go anywhere else. I think that is also a good indicator, like when people are making decisions, what's it based on? And I mean, if you can identify a desire, then maybe you can start to put together a plan or find a path to see that desire fulfilled. Well, for us, it was like, yeah, this is just right.
Right.
And it's still right. And how long that'll be, I don't have the answer to that, but I know it's right now.
Hopefully a long time.
Yeah.
I'm just getting started. With that said, I got one more thing I got to ask you, only because you brought up you being ornery. And again, I've known you for a while. and I've listened to you on Sundays, and I don't think for the length of time that you've been married, I don't think you have to be a little ornery and look over your shoulder at her when she's out there to see if you got away with it or not. But you kind of know what you can get away with. She keeps you centered too, doesn't she?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Char's amazing.
yeah, amazing. The kindest person I know. You know, way above. I married way above myself. And
I'll kick your coverage, what I call it. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I, in a moment of weakness, she just gave in to, to an invitation to share her life with me. And, I still, every day, am just so thankful because how stable she is, how kind she is. She's a great listener.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the greatest qualities about my wife is that, the number one key in communication is first hearing. And she is really good at doing that. And then speaking accordingly. And of course, that's just been so good for me, so beneficial.
I think I found out the first time I came back in May to Living Word Fellowship. I think that was first one or second one, that you're not allowed to eat fried bologna. I still remember that.
Yeah, she's we eat pretty clean now.
Not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah,
No,
but
no.
I do. I honestly think you got several things on your side. Obviously, God being one of them, but your wife, and from what I see, when you walk into that, you blend. I never noticed that about you until I went to church that first time. You blend in a crowd. Like unless you, what's the word I want? Unless you want to be spotted, I don't necessarily think you'll be spotted. You'd be a great another spy of type thing.
Yeah.
You just don't. You're not boisterous. You're not. You blend in real easy. The blue jeans or whatever it is. But I've noticed that about you. Is that your intent? Just to kind of be there and here?
Yeah. One of the things my mom instilled both in my brother and I, and it's just part of my philosophy, is there are two things that she said consistently. She said, Doug. Go about your business quietly, and secondly is use your strength to help others, and those are two things that I try to share, with those that I share time with or have the opportunity or the privilege to speak into their life. I especially in ministry, I think that the message is Christ-centered. And it's not man-centered. And I remember that. And I remember the privilege of being able to stand on a platform and to be able to present God's word to people and to allow God's Spirit to take that truth and personalize it. And while I might be sharing, one of my prayers before I ever leave my study every Sunday and Wednesday is that I might share, but God, would you speak? Would you speak to the hearts and the needs, and would you reveal your goodness to people today? And maybe that within itself, I think, has been an answer maybe to the question that you have. I always said I was a good second, like I was always a number one at being number two, and never really aspired to be the lead pastor or the senior pastor. But when the Lord started to deal with Shar and I about that, He's just a good steward. All the things that we had done for 16 years prior, He used and continues to use. That's a very kind thing to say. I don't want to be the most seen, the most recognized, the most heard.
Right.
I didn't know I was fulfilling it that well that you might observe it.
I pay attention, believe it or not. I pay attention to that stuff. One of the things that we have to talk about is, and again, bringing you here to Knoxville, obviously, and the time you spent here, you have gotten to meet and socialize with a lot of people. Some people may not know that Knoxville has an organization of ministers.
Yes.
And I don't think, I know it again through racing, because every week somebody comes in usually. Tell me about this organization.
Yeah, the Ministerial Association is terrific, and any pastor in town can participate. And we gather once a month. Our desire is to encourage one another in our calling, also to do things for our community and to do them in a way that it would enrich people's lives. I think that there's a lot of good ministers in the area, really quality churches led by men and women that really love the Lord. They're sincere in what they do, or committed in doing it well. And we just, endeavor to work together. We major on the majors. I think that's one of the most important things, is that we don't try to split hairs on certain kinds of teaching or what we believe the scriptures say in this matter or that matter. I think that the message, once again, is Christ crucified, keeping things centered on the cross and every man's need for a Savior. Because we all have one thing in common, and it's that we've all sinned. And, that's not a thing to be ashamed or embarrassed about. That's the only qualification to become someone who's forgiven, is to acknowledge, Lord, I need forgiveness. And so the ministerium is just a quality group of ministers that do a lot in the community. They go about it many times in a very unheralded way. And yet, if they were absent, if these ministries and ministers were absent from the community, there would be a huge void there.
Yeah, you'd know it.
Yes.
You don't know they're here, but if they weren't here, you'd know right away that they weren't here.
Right away.
One
Yes.
word you said was gather, and that's something that's coming up called the gathering.
Yeah.
All right, a Thanksgiving type dinner feast, is that what it is?
Well, it's not.
Or what is it? Tell me exactly what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
So we got November the 24th.
Right.
It's a Sunday night from 6 to 7. We'll be meeting at the K-PAC to gather as a community to give thanks. It's a time for anyone and everyone in the community to come. Everyone's welcome. It's at a neutral site. It's not in a church building per se.
I got those crossed up because the church is doing a feast. I remember that, and I crossed them up. I said feast, but this is you don't have to belong to any church.
No. And it's a time where we gather together and we remember all the blessings of the Lord. And there'll be special music. I believe that the high school chamber choir is going to be performing. There's going to be various opportunities for what we would say congregational singing, and it's all around the theme of gratitude, appreciation, thanksgiving. And the various ministers in town are going to be, sharing the platform and just presenting to everyone who's gathered there all the reasons why we need to give thanks. And there's multitude and multitudes, from the bountiful harvest that we have, to the parks, to the recreation, to the commerce that we experience and the good economy that we have in this part of the world, for our medical providers, for our first responders, for law enforcement, for our town leaders, for our hospitals and those that are giving care, for the churches, for our schools.
Right.
I mean, these are things that many times people take for granted. And, it's easy to see, something that we'd like to see differently. I'd like to see this done differently or this done differently. But sometimes in doing that, we walk by 10 things that are going well, and 10 things we need to give thanks for.
Right.
And so this is really just calling us back to look at all the good things and all the blessings and all the things that we have in our community.
'Tis the season to be allergic to everything. What a year. I've been struggling with this for a month now. I don't know what's going on with it, but drainage has been allergies, yeah. I want to thank you for coming in. We could spend hours talking. I encourage, if you're thinking about it, do what I did. Maybe I'm overstepping my bounds here, but if it's something that you've been struggling with, and I have, go talk to Doug or go talk to whoever.
Yeah.
If you belong to a church but you haven't been to that church, whatever it is, but go talk to him. One thing you said, after I think that first time back in late April, early May, one of the things that you said was give us a shot. You know, because I came into this, excuse me, I came into this exactly that way, and I had a cousin that thought this. I had some family members thought this. I believe in God was my attitude then, but I don't believe in church. I think there's a lot of people out there. I encourage you to take a look at all of it. But again, reach out, do what I did, do your homework. I have not been every Sunday. I haven't been. I had a friend of mine that I've been taking care of on weekends a lot. I have not been every Sunday, but I've been to more this year than I've been my whole lifetime since I was 15 probably.
Yeah.
You know, the way you deliver, and it's not because you're here, the way you deliver is outstanding. And again, you blend. If I didn't know you for who you were, I would have never guessed that you're the guy that's going to get up there and give a sermon or give testimony that particular Sunday. I would have never known, other than I knew you before that.
Yeah.
You know, so again, I hope you stick around a long time. Anything we can do for the church, anything we can do for our ministries here in Knoxville, please use us. That's what we're here for, to get the word out as well. Living Word, a lot of things coming up with that. I mixed the two up about the Thanksgiving dinner and the thing, but you have many hats that you wear, as along with other members. Last night you called me, I think you had your Habitat hat on.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Is there anything that you're not part of? I get that question myself in businesses, but is there anything you're not part of in this community?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I'm probably not a part of, but you know, I can't imagine living somewhere and not trying to make it a better place, not investing, not sowing good seed,
right.
not you know, doing everything that I can, and so that's just very kind. You know, I think that you know, I've been blessed. The Lord's blessed me, and with that, I feel I have a responsibility to be a blessing. I think that therein is a truth that I believe is sort of marked my life as you're blessed to be a blessing. But I think, as I stated earlier, there are so many good churches.
Right.
And when you talk about a small community, that, I mean, they do a good job.
Right.
And I do know that there's no perfect church. Where we gather isn't perfect, but the Lord is. And I think if people get their eyes on Him, and they keep their eyes on Him through the course of their life, then you know, some of that, maybe that critical attitude or condescending attitude or I don't need this attitude sort of just takes care of itself. I think He takes care of it.
Yep.
I think when we keep our eyes on Him, He sort of perfects all the things that concern us, or some of the arguments or disputes that we have. I think they sort of get put to bed. And we're like, no, okay, I sort of see things through a different lens now. I mean, He's just good at that. And so I know there's multitudes of good men and women that are helping to point people to the goodness of God in our area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The gathering is coming up on November 24th at what time again? 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock at KPAC. That's the Knoxville Performing Arts Center out there at the high school. Encourage you to do that. You can read more about that at Knoxville Today as well. We're running that ad every day until the event happens. Doug, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for this edition. We do got to do some business, though. I almost forget to do this all the time. But our fine sponsors, turn the cup around right. There we go. I still haven't got the camera angle part down right. Design Metal Art always comes in and helps us out, guys. And right now, again, if you share us or like us on Facebook, you'll get a chance next week to win this. You can have their artwork on it, my artwork on it, or your own artwork on it. If it's your business logo or your logo, you have to pay the difference on the logo part. But if you take one of these, they're absolutely free. All right? This week's winner, Keith Hughes. So we do appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, like us, share us, and we'll see you next time. It all comes up on Try Knoxville.